Ake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the clock on his computer screen. 7:30 in the evening, again. This was the fifth day in a row he'd stayed late at the office while everyone else went home at 5. He pushed back from his desk and stretched his arms, wondering what he'd done to deserve this treatment. 3 weeks ago, everything had been normal. Jake worked as a systems analyst for Galactic Solutions, a big company that handled shipping and trade between different planets. The work was interesting enough, and his old boss had been pretty fair about workload. Then the old boss retired, and everything changed. His new supervisor was an alien named Zara. She belonged to a species called Veltharians, and Jake had to admit she was striking to look at. She stood nearly 7 feet tall with smooth blue skin that seemed to shimmer and change color depending on her mood. Her ears were pointed like something from an old fantasy movie, and her large eyes held an intelligence that made Jake feel like she could see right through him. The weird thing was, Zara only seemed to give him the overtime assignments. His co-workers Tom and Lisa left every day at exactly 5 o'clock, chatting about their evening plans as they headed to the elevator. Meanwhile, Jake found himself buried under project after project that apparently couldn't wait until tomorrow. Thompson, Zara's voice came from behind him. He turned to see her standing in the doorway of his cubicle, holding another data pad. Her skin had that deep blue color it got when she was being serious about work. Yes, boss? Jake tried to keep the tiredness out of his voice. I need you to run diagnostics on the shipping routes to the Andromeda sector. There's been some irregularities in the delivery times, and corporate wants a full report by tomorrow morning. Jake looked at the data pad she handed him. The screen showed hundreds of shipping routes, each one requiring individual analysis. This was easily a 12-hour job, maybe more. Couldn't this wait until tomorrow? I could come in early and… No. Zara's skin shifted to a darker shade of blue. It needs to be done tonight. The morning briefing is at 8, and I need time to review your findings. Jake nodded and took the pad. Okay, I'll get right on it. As Zara walked away, Jake noticed something odd. Instead of heading toward the elevator like everyone else, she went back to her office. The light was still on in there, and through the glass walls, he could see her sitting at her desk, staring at her computer screen. He got to work on the shipping routes, but his mind kept wandering to his boss. There was something about the way she acted that didn't quite add up. She was professional and efficient, but there was a sadness in her eyes that she tried to hide. And why did she always stay late too? Every night when he left, her office light was still on, round 9 o'clock. Jake's stomach started growling. He'd been so focused on work that he'd forgotten to eat dinner. The office cafeteria was closed, and the vending machines only had candy bars and chips. He was debating whether to order food delivery when he heard footsteps approaching his cubicle. Thompson, Zara appeared again, but this time she was carrying 2 cups of coffee and a bag that smelled like food. I thought you might be hungry. Jake stared at her in surprise. Oh, thanks. That's really thoughtful. She set one of the cups and half the bag's contents on his desk. Inside was a sandwich from the deli down the street. It was still warm. How did you know I hadn't eaten? He asked. Zara's skin shifted to a lighter blue, almost purple. Veltharians have enhanced hearing. Your stomach has been making noise. For the past hour, Jake felt his cheeks get warm. Sorry about that. I should have planned better. It's fine. She paused, seeming to consider something. How is the route analysis coming along? Pretty well, actually. I've found 3 major bottlenecks that are causing the delays. Give me another hour or 2, and I should have the full report ready. Something flickered across Zara's face. Too quick for Jake to identify. Take your time. Accuracy is more important than speed. As she walked away, Jake noticed she didn't go back to her office right away. Instead, she went to the break room and came back with a small plate of cookies from someone's birthday celebration earlier. She left them on the counter near his cubicle. Without saying anything, Jake found himself watching her more carefully as the evening wore on. Every 20 minutes or so, she'd find a reason to walk past his desk. Sometimes she'd ask about his progress. Other times she'd just nod and keep walking. But she was always there, like she was keeping an eye on him. It was almost midnight when Jake finally finished the report. He saved it to the company server and sent Zara a message letting her know it was done. Within minutes, she appeared at his cubicle. "Excellent work," she said, scrolling through the data on her tablet. "Your analysis is very thorough. Thanks. I'm pretty beat, though. I think I'll head home now." Of course, get some rest. Jake packed up his things and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, he looked back at the office. Zara was still there, sitting at her desk, the only light in the entire floor. Something about that image stuck with him as he drove home through the empty streets. The next morning, Jake arrived at work to find an email from Zara praising his work on the shipping routes. But attached to the email was another assignment. This one involved analyzing supply chain efficiency for 3 different star systems. Another late night, for sure. As the day went on, Jake started paying more attention to his co-workers' conversations. During lunch, he sat with Tom and Lisa, hoping to learn more about their new boss. "She's definitely efficient," Tom said, biting into his sandwich. "But man, she's intense, always so serious. I heard she used to work for the Galactic Trade Commission before coming here," Lisa added. "Apparently, she's got some kind of special certification in interstellar logistics." Jake nodded, then decided to probe a little deeper. "Do you guys ever have to work overtime for her?" Tom and Lisa exchanged glances. "Not really," Tom said. "She usually gives us our assignments first thing in the morning, and we finish them by closing time." "Yeah, I can't remember the last time I stayed past 5, Lisa agreed. "Why? Is she making you work late?" Jake tried to play it off casually. "Just a few times. Big projects. You know." But inside, he was more confused than ever. Why was he the only one getting the overtime assignments? Was his work not good enough? Was she testing him somehow? That evening, as Jake settled in for another late night, he decided to do some research. The company database had basic information about all employees, including their backgrounds and previous work experience. He looked up Zara's file, curious about her history. What he found made his heart sink a little. According to her employment record, Zara had been married to another Veltharian named Kethaval, who had worked as a transport pilot for a shipping company. The record showed that Kethaval had died in a transport accident 3 months ago. Suddenly, Zara's behavior made more sense. The long hours, the reluctance to leave the office, the way she seemed to find excuses to stay busy. She wasn't just being a demanding boss, she was avoiding going home to an empty house. Jake looked up from his computer to see Zara walking past his cubicle again. This time, instead of just nodding, he called out to her. "Hey, boss, want some company while I work on this supply chain thing? I could use a second pair of eyes on some of these numbers." Zara stopped and turned back to him. Her skin shifted to a softer blue color, and for just a moment, Jake thought he saw something like gratitude in her eyes. "That would be helpful," she said quietly. "Let me get my chair," as she rolled her chair over to his desk. Jake realized he made a decision. He didn't know much about Veltharian culture or how to help someone deal with grief, but he knew what loneliness looked like. And if his boss needed someone to sit with her while she avoided going home, well, Jake could do that. After all, he didn't have much waiting for him at home either. Just a small apartment, a few houseplants, and a streaming service subscription. If staying late meant Zara didn't have to face her empty house alone, then maybe this overtime wasn't such a bad thing after all. He pulled up the supply chain data and started explaining what he'd found so far. As he talked, he noticed Zara's skin gradually shifted to a warmer, more relaxed shade of blue. For the first time since she'd become his boss, she actually looked peaceful. Jake smiled to himself and got back to work. Tomorrow, he'd probably get another late assignment, but now he understood why, and somehow that made all the difference. Over the next 2 weeks, Jake and Zara fell into a routine that neither of them talked about but both seemed to understand. Every day around 4:30, Jake would get an assignment that required him to stay late, and every evening, Zara would find reasons to stick around the office to dot at first. Their interactions were purely professional. Zara would check on his progress, offer technical advice, or bring him coffee when his cup ran empty. But gradually, small personal moments started creeping into their work sessions. It started with Jake noticing that Zara always seemed cold. The office temperature was set for human comfort, but Veltharians apparently preferred it warmer. One evening, Jake saw her rubbing her arms and quietly shivering as she reviewed reports at her desk. "Hey boss," he called out, "want me to adjust the thermostat? You look freezing over there." Zara's skin shifted to a pale blue color that Jake was starting to recognize as embarrassment. "I'm fine. Don't worry about it." But the next day, Jake arrived early and bumped the temperature up a few degrees before anyone else got to the office. When Zara came in, she paused and looked around, seeming surprised by the comfortable warmth. Her skin took on a healthier, more vibrant blue shade. "Much better," she said quietly as she passed his desk. It was the first time Jake had seen her smile, even just a little. From then on, Jake made sure to arrive early and adjust the temperature. He also started bringing 2 cups of coffee, instead of 1 when he made his afternoon run to the break room. Zara never asked for coffee, but she always accepted it when he offered. "You know," Jake said one evening as they worked on a particularly complex shipping manifest, "back on Earth, my grandmother used to say that coffee tastes better when it's shared with someone." Zara looked up from her data pad. "Your grandmother. Sounds wise. Do you miss her every day?" "She passed away about 2 years ago, but she was the one who taught me that small kindnesses matter more than big gestures." Something flickered across Zara's face. "That's a beautiful lesson." Jake noticed that after that conversation, Zara started opening up just a little more. She'd make small comments about her work, ask questions about human customs, or share observations about life on the colony world. Nothing too personal, but enough to show she was starting to trust him. One evening, Jake was working on a budget analysis when he heard a frustrated sound from Zara's office. He looked up to see her staring at her computer screen, her skin flickering rapidly between different shades of blue and purple. In the 3 weeks he'd been working with her, he'd never seen her look so overwhelmed. Jake saved his work and walked over to her office. "Everything okay in here?" Zara's skin was cycling through colors so quickly it was almost hypnotic. "The quarterly financial projections aren't balancing. I've checked the numbers 5 times, and there's still a discrepancy of nearly 50,000 credits." Jake could hear the stress in her voice. "Mind if I take a look?" "Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes helps." Zara hesitated, then gestured to the chair beside her desk. "I suppose it couldn't hurt." Jake pulled up the financial data on his tablet and started going through the numbers. After about 10 minutes, he found the problem. "There's your issue. The transport costs for the Centauri routes are being calculated twice, once in the shipping category and once in the logistics category." Zara's skin immediately shifted to a calmer, more stable blue. "How did you spot that so quickly?" "I made the same mistake on a smaller project last month. Once you've seen it, you know what to look for." Jake closed his tablet and stood up. "No big deal." "Wait," Zara's voice stopped him at the door. "Thank you. That would have taken me hours to find." Jake turned back to her. "That's what teammates are for, right?" The word teammates seemed to catch Zara off guard. Her skin shifted to a soft, almost golden blue that Jake had never seen before. "Yes," she said quietly. "I suppose it is." From that night forward, their dynamic changed. Instead of just working in the same space, they started actually collaborating. Zara would ask for Jake's input on complex problems, and Jake felt comfortable suggesting improvements to their processes. They developed an easy rhythm, passing data back and forth, building on each other's ideas. During one of their late-night sessions, Jake was explaining a new efficiency algorithm he developed when he noticed Zara wasn't paying attention to the screen. She was watching him instead, her head tilted slightly to one side. "Sorry, am I boring you?" Jake asked. "No, not at all. I was just thinking about how different humans and Veltharians are when it comes to problem solving." "Different how?" Zara leaned back in her chair, considering her words. Veltharians tend to be very methodical. We approach problems in a linear fashion, working through each step carefully. But you seem to see patterns and connections that aren't obvious. You think in ways that surprise me. Jake felt his cheeks warm up. I don't know about that. I just try to look at things from different angles. That's exactly what I mean. Most Veltharians would never think to check if costs were being double counted in different categories. We would have verified each number individually until we found the error, and that would have worked too, just taken longer. Yes, but your way was more efficient, more creative. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Zara asked, "What made you want to work in logistics? It seems like an unusual choice for someone with your intuitive approach to problems." Jake shrugged. "Honestly, I like the idea that my work helps connect people across the galaxy. Every shipping route I optimize, every supply chain I streamline. It means families get their packages faster, businesses get their supplies on time, colonies get the resources they need. It makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger." Zara's skin shifted to that warm gold and blue again. "I never thought about it that way. For me, work has always been about precision and efficiency. But you're right. We are connecting people." "What got you into this field?" Jake asked. Zara was quiet for so long that Jake wondered if he'd overstepped. Then she said, My former mate. He was a transport pilot. He used to tell me stories about the places he'd been, the people he'd met. I wanted to understand his world better. So I studied logistics and trade coordination." It was the first time she'd mentioned her deceased partner directly. Jake felt honored that she'd trusted him with that information. "He sounds like he was a good storyteller," Jake said gently. "He was. He could make even the most routine cargo run sound like an adventure." Zara's voice was soft, full of fondness and sadness. "He always said that every package we shipped carried someone's hopes with it. That's beautiful." "And he was right," Zara nodded, then seemed to realize how personal the conversation had become. Her skin shifted back to its usual professional blue. "We should probably get back to work." But something had changed between them. Over the following nights, their conversations became more natural, more relaxed. Zara started sharing small details about Veltharian culture, and Jake told her about life on Earth and his experiences adjusting to colony life. One evening, Jake brought dinner for both of them instead of just grabbing something from the vending machine. He'd ordered from a restaurant that specialized in multi-species cuisine, making sure to get something that would be safe for Veltharian digestion. "You didn't have to do this," Zara said, but Jake could tell she was pleased. "I wanted to. Besides, vending machine food gets old after a while." As they ate, Jake noticed that Zara seemed more relaxed than usual. Her skin maintained a steady, warm blue color, and she actually laughed at one of his jokes about his apartment's broken air conditioning. "You know," she said, "I haven't had a proper meal in weeks. I've been living on nutrition bars and coffee. That's not healthy. You need real food to function properly." "I know. I just haven't felt much like cooking lately." Jake understood. Cooking for one person when you're used to cooking for two must be especially hard. "Well, from now on, if I'm ordering dinner, I'll get enough for both of us. No sense in both of us surviving on junk food." Zara looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Why are you being so kind to me?" The question caught Jake off guard. "I don't know. Because you're my boss? Because you're a good person? Because everyone deserves kindness?" Most humans wouldn't go out of their way for an alien supervisor. Most humans haven't had the chance to work with an alien supervisor as dedicated and smart as you are. Zara's skin shifted to that golden blue again, and Jake realized he was starting to associate that color with happiness. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means more than you know." As they finished their dinner and got back to work, Jake felt like they'd crossed an invisible line. They weren't just boss and employee anymore, or even just teammates. They were becoming something like friends, and judging by the way Zara's skin stayed that warm, golden blue for the rest of the evening, she felt the same way. Jake first noticed the change in Zara's behavior on a Tuesday morning. instead of staying in her office until he finished his regular work. She started hovering around his desk during normal business hours. At first, he thought maybe she was just checking on a project deadline, but it kept happening. "Thompson, how's the inventory analysis coming along?" she asked, appearing at his cubicle for the third time that morning. "Pretty good. I should have it done by lunch, just like we discussed yesterday." "Good. Let me know if you need anything." She lingered for a moment, then walked away, only to return 20 minutes later with another question. Tom and Lisa started noticing too. During their coffee break, Lisa leaned over and whispered, "Is it just me? Or is our boss acting weird around Jake?" Tom nodded. "She's been checking on him constantly. Yesterday I saw her walk by his desk 6 times in 1 hour." Jake tried to ignore the comments, but he had to admit Zara's behavior was becoming obvious. She'd find reasons to assign him tasks that kept him close to her office. When he had to go to different floors for meetings, she'd often show up with some urgent question that could have waited. The strangest part was how protective she seemed. When Jake mentioned he was having trouble with his computer, Zara personally called the IT department and insisted they send someone immediately. When the cafeteria ran out of the sandwich Jake usually ordered, she somehow arranged for them to make a fresh one just for him. "Boss, you really don't need to do all this," Jake said one afternoon after she'd rearranged his schedule to make sure he wouldn't miss lunch. Zara's skin shifted to that pale blue color. That meant she was embarrassed. "I just want to make sure you're working efficiently. A hungry employee is an unproductive employee." But Jake could tell there was more to it than that. The way she watched him, the way she seemed to know exactly where he was at all times, the way she'd tense up whenever he mentioned going somewhere alone, it all felt like she was trying to protect him from something. The answer came 3 days later, in the worst possible way. Jake was doing routine maintenance on one of the atmospheric processors in the building's lower level. It was a simple job, just checking filters and running diagnostics. He'd done it dozens of times before, but this time, something went wrong. He was replacing a filter when he heard a hissing sound. Before he could react, a small cloud of yellowish gas leaked from a damaged pipe joint. Jake immediately held his breath and backed away, but he'd already inhaled some of it. His eyes started watering, and his throat felt like it was on fire. He stumbled toward the emergency comm panel and hit the alarm button before collapsing to his knees, coughing violently. Within minutes, the medical team arrived and rushed him to the building's health center. The gas turned out to be a mild industrial cleaner that had leaked from a faulty seal. Dangerous if you breathed a lot of it, but not life-threatening in small amounts. The medics said he'd be fine after a few hours of treatment. What Jake didn't expect was Zara's reaction. She burst into the medical center while the doctors were still checking his vital signs. Her skin was flashing bright red, a color Jake had never seen before. Her eyes were wide with panic, and she was breathing heavily like she'd run all the way from her office. "Is he okay? What happened? I want a full report on his condition immediately," she demanded, pushing past the medical staff to get to Jake's bedside. "Boss, I'm fine," Jake said, his voice still a bit hoarse. "It's just a minor exposure. The docs say I'll be back to work tomorrow." "No, you won't. You're taking the rest of the week off." Zara's skin was still flashing between red and deep purple. "I want every atmospheric processor in this building inspected immediately. I want safety protocols reviewed. I want Mom," interrupted Dr. Chen, the facility's chief medical officer. "Perhaps we could discuss this outside. The patient needs rest." Zara looked like she wanted to argue, but she nodded and followed the doctor out. Through the glass window, Jake could see them talking intensely. Zara's skin was still cycling through agitated colors, and she kept glancing back at him. An hour later, after the medical team had cleared him to go home, Zara insisted on personally escorting him to his apartment. She drove him there in her own vehicle, checking on him every few minutes during the ride. "You really don't need to do this," Jake said as she walked him to his door. "I feel fine now. You inhaled toxic gas. That's not fine." Her skin was still that deep, worried blue. "I should have never approved that maintenance schedule." I should have insisted on better safety equipment. I should have, hey, Jake, turned to face her. This wasn't your fault. Accidents happen. That's why we have safety protocols and medical staff. But you could have been seriously hurt. You could have, she stopped, her skin shifting to an even darker shade. But I wasn't. I'm okay. Zara stared at him for a long moment. The thought of losing you, she started, then stopped herself. I mean, the thought of losing a valuable employee like you would be problematic for the department. Jake wasn't buying it, the way she'd reacted. The panic in her eyes, the way she was still hovering protectively. This wasn't about losing an employee. This was personal. Zara, he said gently, can I ask you something? Her skin shifted to a nervous purple. Of course. Have you been watching over me? I mean, more than usual. She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what you mean. The constant check-ins, making sure I eat lunch, rearranging my schedule, calling IT when my computer acts up, and now this. He gestured between them. You're treating me like I'm someone important to you. Zara's skin went through several color changes before settling on a soft, vulnerable blue. You are important to me, she said quietly. More important than I expected when I first started supervising you. Why? Because you're the first person in months who's shown me genuine kindness. Because you stay late not because you have to, but because you want to keep me company. Because you notice when I'm cold and you fix it without being asked. Because you bring me dinner and listen to my stories about work and make me feel like I'm not alone. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Zara, I know it's inappropriate. I know I'm your supervisor and this complicates things. But when I heard about the gas leak, when I thought you might be hurt, her skin flashed red again. I've already lost one person who mattered to me. I can't lose another. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither of them had expected to build. Jake realized that what he'd interpreted as overprotective boss behavior was actually something much deeper. Zara wasn't just watching over him as an employee, she was watching over him. Because she cared about him. You're not going to lose me, Jake said. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. Nobody can promise that. You're right. I can't promise I'll never get hurt or that nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise that I'll be careful. And I can promise that if something like this happens again, I'll let you know I'm okay as soon as possible. Zara's skin gradually shifted back to a calmer blue. You think I'm being ridiculous, don't you? No, I think you're being human. Well, you know what I mean. That got a small smile from her. I'm not sure Veltharians and humans experience protectiveness in the same way, maybe not, but caring about someone, wanting to keep them safe, that's pretty universal, isn't it? Yes, she said softly. It is. They stood there for a moment, both processing what had just been said. Then Jake reached out and gently touched her arm. Her skin was warm and surprisingly soft. Thank you, he said, for caring about me, for wanting to protect me. It means more than you know. Zara's skin shifted to that golden blue he'd come to associate with happiness. Thank you for letting me. So what happens now? Jake asked. I mean, with us, with work, I don't know. This is new territory for me. I've never felt this way about a human before. I've never felt this way about anyone except. She trailed off, except your mate. Yes, and that terrifies me. Jake understood. Moving on from grief was scary enough without adding the complications of a cross-species relationship and workplace dynamics. But looking at Zara, seeing the vulnerability in her expression and the way her skin reflected every emotion, he knew they'd already crossed a line they couldn't uncross. We'll figure it out, he said. Together, she repeated, and her skin glowed with that warm, golden light. As Jake watched her drive away, he realized that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Their relationship had fundamentally changed, and there was no going back to being just boss and employee. But for the first time since he'd started working for her, Jake felt like they were truly partners. And judging by the way Zara had fought for him today, protected him, and opened up about her feelings, he was pretty sure she felt the same way. The days following the gas leak incident felt different. Jake returned to work after taking just one day off, despite Zara's insistence that he rest longer. Their interactions were careful now, like they were both walking on thin ice, aware that something fundamental had shifted between them. But not sure how to handle it. Zara still gave him overtime assignments. But now Jake understood they weren't really about work. They were about two people who had found comfort in each other's company and weren't ready to give that up. The difference was that now they both acknowledged what was happening. Jake said one evening as they worked side by side on a supply route optimization, "We don't have to pretend these late nights are just about deadlines anymore." Zara's skin shifted to that soft blue that meant she was thinking carefully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we both know why we're really here. You don't want to go home to an empty house, and I don't want you to have to face that alone." She was quiet for a long moment. "Is that why you stay?" "Out of pity? No," Jake said firmly. "I stay because I genuinely enjoy spending time with you, because I like our conversations, because I care about what happens to you. Even though I'm your boss, even though I'm not human, especially because you're you." Zara's skin took on a warmer hue, but Jake could see uncertainty in her eyes. "This is complicated, isn't it?" "Yeah, it is, but that doesn't make it wrong." Over the next week, their evening conversations gradually became more personal. Zara started sharing memories of her life before the accident, and Jake found himself opening up about his own experiences with loss and loneliness. "My father died when I was 23, Jake said one night as they took a break from analyzing shipping manifests. "Heart attack. Completely unexpected. For months after, I couldn't figure out how to live in a world that suddenly felt empty." "How did you manage it?" Zara asked. "Badly. At first, I threw myself into work, avoided friends, stopped doing things I enjoyed." "Sound familiar?" Zara's skin shifted to a darker blue. "Very familiar." "What finally helped was realizing that grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And it gets easier when you don't try to carry it alone." Valtharian culture teaches us to grieve in isolation. It's considered a private matter, something that shouldn't burden others. Maybe that works for some people, but it doesn't seem to be working for you. Zara was quiet for a while, staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. "Tell me about human grief rituals," she said finally. "Well, we have funerals and memorial services, but the real healing happens in the everyday stuff. Friends, bringing food, family checking in, people sharing memories. It's about community support." "That sounds nice, comforting." It can be. The idea is that when you're too sad to take care of yourself, other people take care of you until you can manage again. Kethaval would have liked that concept. It was the first time Zara had spoken her mate's name aloud since that brief mention. Weeks ago. Jake felt honored that she'd trusted him with it. "Tell me about him." Zara's skin went through several color changes before settling on a soft, nostalgic blue. "He was lively, always moving, always talking, always finding adventure in ordinary things. He could make a grocery shopping trip feel like exploring a new planet. He sounds wonderful. He had this laugh that could fill a whole room, and he was curious about everything. He's the one who taught me to appreciate other cultures. Before I met him, I barely interacted with non-Valtharians. What would he think about us? About our friendship?" Zara considered this. "He would probably tease me about working too much, but he'd be happy that I found someone who makes me laugh again." "You laugh. With you, I do. More than I have in months." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jake asked gently, "What happened to him?" Zara's skin immediately darkened, cycling through deep blues and purples. "Transport accident. He was piloting a cargo run to the outer colonies when his ship's navigation system failed. He tried to make an emergency landing, but she stopped, her voice catching. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "No, I don't need to. I haven't talked about it with anyone." The official report said it was mechanical failure. Nothing anyone could have predicted or prevented. But I keep thinking about all the times I complained about his long trips. All the times I asked him to take shorter runs closer to home. Zara, that's not your fault. Logically, I know that, but emotionally, Her skin was flashing between colors now, a sure sign of distress. The last conversation we had was an argument. He wanted to take a week off for our anniversary, but I was busy with a big project at my old job. I told him we could celebrate when I wasn't so swamped. Jake could see where this was going. And then he took the long-haul run instead. Yes, if I had just said yes to the anniversary trip, if I had put him first instead of work, he'd still be alive. You can't know that. He might have taken a different run the following week. Or the week after that. You can't control everything. That happens. But I should have been there. I should have been with him more. I should have appreciated what we had instead of always focusing on the next deadline. The next project. Jake watched as Zara's emotional control finally cracked. Her skin was cycling through colors rapidly now, and he could see tears forming in her large eyes. In all the weeks they'd worked together, he'd never seen her anything less than composed. I failed him, she whispered. I failed as a partner, and now I'm failing at grieving properly too. Veltharians are supposed to honor their lost mates by maintaining solitude for a full year. But here I am, finding comfort in the company of a human I barely knew 3 months ago. The tears were flowing freely now, and Jake's heart broke for her. Without thinking, he got up from his chair and knelt beside hers. Zara, look at me. When she didn't respond, he gently touched her arm. Please. She turned to face him, her skin still flashing through the spectrum of grief and guilt. You didn't fail him. You loved him the best way you knew how, and finding comfort in friendship doesn't dishonor his memory, it honors it. It shows that he helped you become someone capable of caring deeply. But the traditions are meant to help people heal, not trap them in suffering. If isolating yourself was working, you wouldn't be staying late every night to avoid going home. Zara's color shifts began to slow down. I just miss him so much, and I feel guilty for missing him less when I'm with you. Missing him less doesn't mean forgetting him. It means you're healing. And I think, if he loved you as much as you loved him, he'd want you to heal. You really believe that? I do. From everything you've told me about him, he sounds like someone who wanted you to be happy. Zara's skin gradually shifted to a steadier, sadder blue. He used to say that love wasn't about possession. It was about wanting the best for someone, even if that meant letting them go. Smart guy. Yes, he was. She wiped her eyes. I think he would like you. I hope so. I would have liked to meet him. They sat quietly for a while, the emotional intensity of the conversation settling around them like dust after a storm. Finally, Zara spoke again. What happens now? With us, I mean, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to care about someone new without feeling like I'm betraying someone old. There's no timeline for grief. There's no right or wrong way to heal. We just take it one day at a time. Together, if you want. Zara's skin shifted to that warm gold and blue he'd grown to love. I want that very much, but I need to go slowly. This is all very new for me. We'll go as slowly as you need. And if I have bad days when the grief feels too heavy, then I'll sit with you through the bad days too. For the first time since he'd known her, Zara reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm and soft, and Jake could feel a slight vibration under her touch. Some kind of Veltharian physiological response he didn't understand but found oddly comforting. Thank you, she said, for listening, for staying, for helping me remember that it's okay to be happy sometimes. Thank you for trusting me with your story. As they sat there, hands linked, Jake realized they'd crossed another threshold. This wasn't just about friendship anymore, and it wasn't just about helping each other through loneliness. Something deeper was growing between them, something that honored Zara's past while opening the door to a different kind of future. It would be complicated. There would be challenges they hadn't even considered yet. But looking at Zara's peaceful expression and the steady golden glow of her skin, Jake felt hopeful for the first time in months. They were going to figure this out together. 3 weeks after their emotional breakthrough, Jake noticed something wonderful happening. For the first time since he'd known her, Zara left work at 5 o'clock on a Friday. She stopped by his desk, her skin glowing with that warm golden color. That had become his favorite sight. I was thinking, she said, Maybe we could have dinner somewhere other than the office tonight. Somewhere with actual tables and menus. Jake saved his work and grinned at her. I thought you'd never ask. I know just the place. The restaurant Jake chose specialized in multi-species cuisine, with dishes that both humans and Veltharians could enjoy. As they sat across from each other at a real table, with soft lighting and the gentle hum of conversation around them, Jake realized how different this felt from their late-night office meals. This is nice, Zara said, looking around at the other diners. I'd forgotten what it was like to eat somewhere with actual atmosphere. When was the last time you went to a restaurant? Zara's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. Before Kethaval died, we used to try new places every weekend. It was one of our traditions. Jake noticed that talking about her late mate didn't cause the rapid color changes it used to. The sadness was still there, but it was gentler now, mixed with fond memories instead of overwhelming grief. What was his favorite type of food? Spicy. The hotter, the better. I think he enjoyed watching me turn different colors when I tried to keep up with him. Zara smiled at the memory. He'd always order the mildest thing on the menu for himself and then steal bites of my food. Sounds like he was a troublemaker. He was, but in the best possible way, as they talked. Jake became aware of the looks they were getting from other diners. Some were curious, others seemed surprised to see a human and Veltharian together socially. A few appeared disapproving. Does this bother you? Jake asked quietly. The attention? Zara followed his gaze and noticed the stares for the first time. A little. Interspecies relationships aren't common in this colony. But, her skin brightened, I find I care less about their opinions than I thought I would. Good. Because I plan to take you to a lot more restaurants over the following weeks. They fell into a new rhythm. Instead of manufactured overtime, they started meeting for lunch during work hours and dinner afterward. Zara began showing Jake aspects of Veltharian culture, while he introduced her to human customs and traditions. Human music is fascinating, Zara said one evening as they walked through the colony's Central Park. Jake had brought a portable speaker, and they were listening to a playlist of Earth classics. It's so emotional. Veltharian music is more mathematical, more structured. Different doesn't mean wrong. I'd love to hear some Veltharian music sometime. Really? Most humans find it boring. I'm not most humans. Zara's skin glowed brighter. No, you're not. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. A few co-workers made comments about favoritism, and Jake overheard someone joking about sleeping your way to the top. It stung, especially because he knew how hard both he and Zara worked to maintain professionalism during office hours. Maybe I should request a transfer to another department, Jake suggested one evening after a particularly uncomfortable encounter with a colleague. No, Zara said firmly, you're an excellent analyst, and I'm not going to let office gossip force you away from work you're good at. Besides, her skin shifted to a determined purple. I think it's time people in this colony started getting used to seeing humans and aliens as equals, not just co-workers. Jake admired her determination, but he could see that the social pressure was affecting her too. Some members of the local Veltharian community had approached her about her inappropriate behavior during her mourning period. Do you regret it? Jake asked one night as they sat on his apartment balcony, looking up at the 3 moons of Kepler 440b. Choosing this path instead of following traditional grieving customs? Zara was quiet for a long moment. 6 months ago, I thought grief was something you endured alone until it finally released you. I thought healing meant waiting for the pain to simply disappear. And now I understand that healing is something you actively choose to do. And it's easier when you have someone who cares about you supporting you through it. So no regrets, none. Her skin took on that golden glow that always made Jake's heart skip. Kethaval used to say that love multiplies when you share it. It doesn't divide. I used to think he was just being romantic, but now I understand what he meant. How so? Caring about you doesn't diminish what I felt for him. If anything, it helps me appreciate what we had even more. You've taught me that hearts can hold multiple kinds of love, without any of them being less real. Jake reached over and took her hand. The gesture had become natural for them over the past few weeks, and he loved the way her skin always warmed at his touch. "I love you too," he said. It was the first time either of them had used those words. Sarah's skin immediately brightened to the most beautiful golden light Jake had ever seen. "Really? Really? I love your dedication to your work. I love the way you remember everyone's coffee preferences. I love how your skin tells me exactly what you're feeling. I love your curiosity about human culture and the way you've taught me to see my own species through alien eyes. I love you too," she said softly. "I love your kindness and your patience. I love the way you stayed late with me before you even knew why I needed the company. I love how you make the ordinary feel special." They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the moons move across the alien sky. Jake thought about how much had changed since that first night of overtime assignments. He'd started out just trying to be helpful to a new boss, and somehow ended up finding something he hadn't even known he was looking for. "So what happens next?" he asked. "Well," Zara said, "I was thinking we should probably make some official changes at work. It's not fair to keep you in my department when everyone knows about our relationship." Jake's heart sank a little. "You want me to transfer? Actually, I was thinking I should transfer. You were there first, and you shouldn't have to give up work you enjoy because of office politics. Where would you go?" "The Interplanetary Trade Division has an opening for a senior coordinator. It's actually a promotion, and it would put us in different departments so there wouldn't be any conflict of interest." Jake squeezed her hand. "Are you sure? I don't want you to feel like you have to sacrifice your career for this." "I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm choosing to build something better." Her skin glowed brighter. "Besides, change can be good. Maybe it's time I stopped hiding behind work and started living again." The next Monday, Zara submitted her transfer request. Within 2 weeks, she moved to the Interplanetary Trade Division, where her skills and experience made her an immediate asset. Jake stayed in his original department with a new supervisor who was pleasant enough, though he missed working directly with Zara. But their new arrangement had unexpected benefits. Without the complication of a direct supervisor relationship, they could be more open about their connection. They started having lunch together in the cafeteria instead of hiding their relationship. They attended company social events as a couple. Slowly, the office gossip died down as people got used to seeing them together. Some coworkers even started asking Jake questions about Veltharian culture, or consulting with Zara about human customs when working with human clients. "You know what I think," Jake said one evening as they worked together on a joint project between their departments. "I think we're becoming ambassadors without even trying." "What do you mean?" "Look around. 6 months ago, how many interspecies friendships were there in this office? How many people made an effort to understand alien cultures or customs?" Zara considered this. "Not many. And now I see humans asking Veltharian colleagues about their traditions. I see aliens making an effort to understand human humor. I see people from different species eating lunch together." "Exactly. We're not just building a relationship between us. We're showing everyone else that it's possible." Zara's skin took on that warm golden glow. "I like being part of something bigger than just us." "Me too." As they worked side by side, sharing ideas and building on each other's insights, Jake reflected on how perfect this felt. Not perfect in the sense of being without challenges, but perfect in the sense of being exactly where they were supposed to be. Zara had taught him that love could grow in the most unexpected places. That kindness could bridge any gap, and that sometimes the best things in life came from simply showing up for someone who needed you. And Jake had shown Zara that healing was possible, that love could expand rather than replace, and that the future could be bright even after the deepest lost out. Their office space now reflected both their cultures. Zara had brought in a small Veltharian crystal that glowed softly in response to emotions, while Jake had added a few earth plants that reminded him of home. Together, they created something new, a space that honored both their backgrounds, while building something entirely their own. "Ready to call it a day?" Zara asked as she finished saving their project files. "Actually," Jake said, "I was wondering if you'd like to come to my place for dinner tonight. I've been practicing that Veltharian recipe you taught me. The one with the thermal spices?" "That's the one. Fair warning though, I can't promise it won't.